Okay, so let's talk about Apache, the program that we're going to drop into after this taper week of Mohican. Apache is going to be a maximum strength program. We are going to be focusing pretty much solely on on strength during our primary sessions. Work capacity, aerobic capacity, sprinting, all of these will be relegated towards our secondary sessions. We will still work those things in, but they will play a much lesser role in what we're going to be doing throughout Apache. Now, the reason that we are going to be working maximal strength is to peak our strength for the retest in our numbers. We have been working on hypertrophy for quite a while, then transitioning sort of into strength as we continued through Mohican. And as we have gained new tissue, we now need to maximize the output for that tissue. That's where Apache comes into play. It's going to be 7 to 8 weeks. 7 is planned. My prediction is that everybody will be able to track with our progressions on basically a week-by-week basis. And so 7 weeks is my progression. If it looks like we hit a little bit of a speed bump and maybe things are coming along a little bit slower, it may take us another week to get where we want to get. So it'll be 7 to 8 weeks plus a retest. 4 weeks of progression for everything heading upwards. 3 weeks of a taper. During that taper, some things will actually still be progressing, but other things will be tapering. And then we'll have our 1 week retest at the end. Now, our structure is really based around the movements that we're going to be doing. We are going to have our total lifts, our lower lifts, and our upper body lifts. And these movements are going to largely determine what the program looks like. For our total body lifts, we're going to be doing deadlift variations and clean variations. Whichever one you want, 1RM, you're going to continue to work that moving forward. Our lower body is going to be back squat, front squat, and then our upper body is going to be bench press, military press, and our vertical pull. Whichever one you did max reps for, that's what you're going to be working now. Our frequency for our total body lifts is going to be 3 times a week. It's going to switch between 2 cleans and 1 deadlift and 2 deadlifts and 1 clean in alternating weeks. For our for our lower body, it's also going to be 3. We're going to swap those between 2 back squat, 1 front squat, and vice versa. And then for our upper body, we're going to have 4 for our presses, 4 total, and then 2 for our pulls on alternating weeks, so 2 on 1 week, 1 on the next. But for our primary movements there, which is really bench press and military press, it's going to be 4 that we're working total in the week. You'll have 2 days working bench press, 2 days working military press. Now, one thing about the way that this is going to work is that I'm going to utilize some of the time in our secondary sessions to get one of the days of our frequency in there. If you don't do those secondary sessions or you can't do them, it's not a big deal. Now let's move on to what our progressions are going to look like throughout this cycle. First of all, our micro cycles, so the small cycles of progression that happen within this phase, they're not going to repeat. In fact, our sessions really won't repeat. So don't think of it as like a week over week thing. Think of it more as in it's going to follow a categorical pattern. Every session is going to have a total body lift, a lower body lift, and an upper body lift, with some exceptions, of course. We're going to have 4 weeks of progression, and then we're going to have 3 weeks of taper, and then 1 week of a retest. So our 4 weeks of progression are going to go through 4 stages. Those stages are going to increase the percentage that you're working at within some ranges. There are going to be 3 types of progression for each lift. We're going to have a heavy progression, a moderate, and a light. The heavy days are going to be the prime movers of us progressing through this pattern, of us advancing through this progression. The moderate and the light are secondary to fill in some volume, to keep things moving well, but not necessarily to push us forward with the amount that we're lifting. They do play an important role in allowing you to adapt, and yet they will not drive the stages forward like our heavy will. So the way that the heavy progression is going to work is in our first stage, which is essentially week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. More or less, they're going to track with, the stages are going to track with weeks. It will begin at 70 to 80%, so a little bit of overlap between where we left on Mohican. Stage 2 will be 75 to 80%, 85%, stage 3, 85 to 90, stage 4, 85 plus. There actually will be a stage 5. You get the idea here. There will be a stage 5 for some of our movements, which will be 90 plus. You get the idea of how this is going to progress. You're going to have a floor that I want you to be at or above, and you're going to have a ceiling, which I want you to be at or below. Work within that range while we're at this stage of the progression, and then know that as we move forward, our reps are going to drop, our percentages are going to increase, and you should be able to keep up with the progression as long as you are staying within the bounds here. Our moderate is going to be 65 to 75 in our first stage, 70 to 80 in the second stage, 75 to 85 in the third stage. Now we could theoretically do a 4-stage here, but we probably won't. There's a very good chance that our moderate and our light are going to lag behind our heavy, because we do not want the moderate and the light to get in the way of our performance of the heavy lifts. All that really matters here is how you're able to do those heavy lifts. Now, whenever we go into our taper, this is the last thing that I want to cover here in this brief overview video. Whenever we go into our taper, the first thing that we're going to do is pair off some of the movements. We're going to get rid of our total body movements early off in our taper phase. Then we're going to get rid of our lower body movements. Then we're going to get rid of our upper body movements. After we start to pair those off, we're also going to start to pair off some of our volume for our other lifts. And then we're going to start to pair off that intensity. We can do this in a slow and structured manner so that as we progress through the taper, you're able to stay sharp, but also get some rest as we head into the retest week, which will be the very final thing that we do before we transition to something else afterwards. Thanks, guys.